CFO, I don't know how much time we have with you today, and we'll take what you can give us. Um, but we wanted to we do these every Wednesday, and they're just a different range of topics
Awesome.
for our members. Um, and so for today, I thought if you've got 20 minutes or 30 minutes that we could just talk about some of the more recent events. But as a preface to that, I thought if you wouldn't mind, just I've known you since you were in the Florida House, but
Yeah.
uh, having worked in Bay County, I knew your family name there. It was well known. So could you just talk a little bit about your um, business background, restaurateur, and how that experience brought you to Tallahassee, and how you kind of draw on those skills?
Sure. Well, and for starters, Eric, thank you for your leadership. There's been so many times that we've gotten to work together on critical issues, and some of which we may have started off, trying to get an understanding developed. But you and everybody at the Association of Counties have been so cooperative in order to try to help the legislature understand sometimes what a local constitutional officer has to go through with sometimes the challenges, and and y'all are very effective in making sure that Tallahassee understands that unfunded mandates are no fun. But I mean, it's a challenge. Look, being a small business person for the last 30 years of my life, you try to grow a business, you try to expand it, you understand the challenges of permitting, and then you've got local county commissioners who go and run for office, providing leadership to that community, who live in that community. It's not fun raising millage, but it's also difficult sometimes to have to comprehend when Tallahassee passes a law. And I'm sorry, Levy County is dramatically different from Dade County, and all these counties in between. And we really we don't have one state. We got about 5 different countries. And when the legislature passes legislation, it inoculates every single one of the 67 counties. And it's not always a one size fits all. And that's a challenge for the role that y'all play, but it's an incredibly important one, in my opinion, as part of the checks and balances that happens every spring in Tallahassee as, the legislature sits and deliberates. The only constitutional charge they have is passing a budget. I was in there for 8 years. But sometimes they do get outside of that lane, do more than pass a budget. And sometimes those are obligations that are then passed on to local governments, sometimes easy to accommodate. Sometimes there's obviously, some serious lifting that takes place to execute it. So again, I think, when you bring your county commissioners up here, every year, and then you've got all the county commissioners that will come up here repeatedly all during the year, that helps this process be more sensitive and more focused on what's the boots on the ground we're having to deal with day in and day out. So look, I felt it as a small business owner. And I remember closing out my reports at the end of the night at the restaurant, and I'm filling out how much sales tax Captain Harrison's restaurant was sending to the state every single night, or sending to the school district every single night. And you start to think, all right, well, where are my dollars going, and how are they being used? So I mean, I think it's incumbent on all of us to try to be proactive. I think it's important to hold your state government accountable. And I think it's important, as all of you know too well, to hold local governments accountable. And we all signed up for these jobs to put our names on the ballot. Sometimes, we have to answer the tough questions, but I think it's all important that, the public knows that we're here because we enjoy being public servants. So I think it's, again, an awesome relationship that we have, because you know what? All I got to do is look around the state of Florida, and there's nowhere else that anybody else wants to live right now. New York, financially catastrophic train wreck. Illinois, same. California, upside down. State governments in California won't even let Walt Disney World get back, Walt Disneyland open back up. So, I mean, the challenges that these other states are going through because of the restrictions their governments have put in place have been catastrophic to the economies. And if you get into, Osceola, Seminole, Orange counties, you look at how impactful, just for example, the convention business is in that market there, and how much work we've got to do as a state to push out the type of confidence that these visitors need to come back and get our economic engine back running in the state. We've got our work cut out for us. But you know what? At least we're not going to be digging ourselves out of the financial mess that these other states are in right now. And a lot of that, I'd love to take credit for it. I'd love for the state government to take credit for it, but also there's decisions made at the local level that help everybody dig themselves out of the challenges that we're in. And, your county commissioners and your leadership at the association is critical to our economic viability, but also our recovery moving forward. It's not going to be a fun year over the next 2 years. I'll just be simple with all of you. There's a number of your officials that understand the gravity of the finances of what their counties are facing. And if I apply that back to the state, we had $2 billion rolling into the spring, with this past budget that was passed in 19 and 20. There's $2 billion there. That $2 billion was spent making up for the lost revenues that we saw in March, April, May, June, July, August. We still got what's called the Budget Stabilization Fund. That's $1.4 billion. Those dollars, they're very difficult to access. They're like in a lockbox. And the way the state of Florida, if we have to utilize those in order to continue state services, there's a very punitive repayment schedule that is statutorily required to touch those dollars. We're also sitting on about $6 billion of CARES Act that's in my treasury right now. Now that's $6 billion. It is for non-budgeted COVID-related expenses. And I'm not trying to be redundant to what you've already been sharing with your county commissioners or that they have learned on their own, but there's limited flexibility to those dollars. One of the examples that Governor DeSantis did with this most recent budget, he vetoed a little over $200 million of affordable housing money in that budget, in the total of the billion that he vetoed. Biggest number that's ever been vetoed in the history of the state. But then we took CARES Act dollars that were programmed appropriately and plugged that veto. So where we can find compatible ways to use CARES Act dollars to kind of shift dollars to help us navigate this. And what we really need in the state is what a lot of people need. We need a bridge loan. It's no different than what happened with the PPP loan program or the unemployment. The dollars that were flowed out, they were a bridge loan solution to help individuals and businesses get through this rough patch financially. So, the problem you've got in Washington right now, it's silly season. We're in the middle of the election. It's very challenging. And when you've got Nancy Pelosi calling President Trump morbidly obese, there's not going to be any policy that's going to pass that's going to help the citizens of the state of Florida or any of our governments with any type of flexibility with CARES Act dollars. So I think we wait till after the election. Congress will probably come back. They're giving everybody in the country a runaround because their lack of ability to come to some type of an adult conversation of solution. But I think after the election's over, the lame duck Congress will sit down and iron out some solutions that will make sense. But I've been rambling a lot. Let me let you address some questions, and then I want to pitch to you what I'm wanting to advocate for with COVID liability this coming year.
Sure. And let me just remind the folks that are on the Zoom, if you've got questions, you can put them in the chat feature down there, and then I'll read them. I also want to recognize our president who is on the Zoom. It's President Commissioner Melissa McKinley out of Palm Beach County. I just want to recognize her who's on the call.
Hey, Melissa. Yeah, she just tweeted at me. She said I didn't have to wear my mask with y'all today. So anyway, we're social distance right now electronically.
So what I was thinking the other day is that COVID-19 has been like the entire state's Category 5 storm, but you actually experienced a Category 5 storm in your community with Hurricane Michael, and you were ever present. You came and spoke to our group in, I guess, September of 2019, and clearly it was an emotional event for you personally because it impacted your community. So what have you learned from that event and the response, the recovery, now that we've got a storm that impacted the Panhandle? So what have you learned from all of that that is helping you perform at your highest?
Well, I know one thing that I know for a fact is that the recovery of Northwest Florida, from Hurricane Michael, it couldn't have been as smooth in the transition. We still got some things to work out, but it couldn't have been as effective if it wasn't for the resources and mutual aid we had from other emergency management directors from around the state that counties had lent to Bay County in the areas affected, as we had individuals that were beyond exhaustion. They were beyond the ability to process decisions and weigh out solutions. But we had emergency management directors from Lee County, from Monroe County, that came up, that worked in rotation, that helped us start the recovery process because we were so overwhelmed. And it's a beautiful thing when you have that type of ability to lend that processing power at a time of need. Now, what we had over last week over with Hurricane Sally, it was a flood event. It was bad, and the storm jogged to the east at the last second. It strengthened at the last second, and unfortunately, my perfect example, my father-in-law lives on Perdido Key. He moved there about 3 months ago. He didn't evacuate. He made it clear he will never weigh out and weather another storm ever again. Ripped all the siding off of his house. Blew a hole in his roof, flooded his garage. It was a bad situation, and and it's not fun when your county commissions, your sheriffs, your local law enforcement, your first responders are out there pleading with people. It's time to evacuate. It's time to evacuate, and people don't want to leave their stuff. And unfortunately, then you're putting your resources in harm's way trying to deal with individuals that are too reluctant to heed the warnings. So thank goodness. The flood event that took place, as intense as it was, it receded rapidly. There was a tremendous amount of flooding that took place, so there'll be damage from that. There was a windstorm event. There's damage from that, but where there were some really painful lessons to be learned is there's a couple bridges, actually 3 bridges in Pensacola. All of them, they're not small bridges, they're massive bridges. Imagine one of them going into Pensacola, the state of Pensacola in Escambia County, from Santa Rosa County. It's 3 miles long. Barges broke loose from the bridges because one of them was being constructed. As those barges broke loose, it did damage to all of the bridges in the community to the point where the most critical one, the 3 Mile Bridge, it's impassable right now. So, I mean, the type of frustration that the citizens of Escambia County and Santa Rosa County are going to be dealing with over arguably the next year is going to be painful, as they're going to have to drive all the way around the county via I-10 in order to get to work, to get to the hospital, to get to any of their necessities that they typically had in their routine. So there's lessons that'll be learned from this. We've been calling on DOT and the crane operator because there's definitely individuals that have to be held accountable for how these matters were dealt with. And if there's a solution, this is where we should be doing our job as the state, advocating to ensure our local counties, as they're trying to fight to struggle to bring their communities back online, where the state can play a role and help out the assistance of that and create the financial resources to help that recovery move forward faster, or just get you the answers that you deserve. That's what we should be doing. So look, living through Irma, living through Michael, now Sally. This is my 3rd hurricane that I've had on the job that's hit the state of Florida. And, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. But I'll tell you this, I got placed on a FEMA task force last year, and we're an advisory board to the administrator of FEMA. And I'm sitting there talking to emergency management directors from other states all over the United States. And as I'm kind of weighing out, and I'm not trying to brag, but I'm just trying to weigh out, so I'm trying to learn. I ask a lot of questions, but there's not a single state director in another state that can hold a candle to our county directors. I mean, so the resources that we have in Florida, the expertise and the knowledge we have in Florida, it's very humbling that we have got such a top-notch organization of leadership when it comes to our worst days, helping us recover from those challenges. So, very flattered and proud of the resources, talents, and skills the state of Florida has at our worst times.
Yeah, well, the sad part is we've had to practice way too many times on responding to these storms and in COVID. But that's a nice segue. Can you talk about your office? I think outside of Tallahassee is not really well known in terms of its function, but the responsibilities that you have are both broad and deep. Can you kind of talk about what your office, what role it plays during COVID and with the hurricane response?
Sure. Well, and to your point, I'm only the fourth CFO in the history of the state of Florida. So it's a new job. We've had, I don't know, probably 18, 19 attorney generals. So, I mean, as this is a fairly new job, I tell people affectionately, I get to be the state's business manager. And look, I'd be remiss if I didn't compliment your COVID-19 information website that y'all have got at the Association of Counties is amazing. So whoever was the designer, leadership, aggregator, put all the information together, attaboy. I didn't realize how much my staff uses that website. So anyway, thank you for that resource. But I get to be the state fire marshal. I run all insurance fraud for the state of Florida. I regulate the funeral home industry. I license every insurance agent in the state. I'm the trustee of all unclaimed property in the state. But probably the biggest element I have at the cabinet, we work together with the governor. The governor and I have to be in concert when it comes to selecting the insurance commissioner. We have to be in concert when it comes to selection of the Office of Financial Regulation Commissioner. So, if it deals with the finances of the state, and by the way, to your county commissioners that may be retiring at some point, I'll be the one writing that check when you get it. So there's just a number of ways that I feel like our office can justify having a seat almost at any table. We pay every invoice in the state. We cash, we write every check in the state. We run every payroll cycle of the state for every one of our state employees, some of which get paid weekly. Some of them get paid every 2 weeks. Some get paid monthly. So it's all over the map. It's a very busy place. But it's a great job. I wouldn't trade it for anything. And in addition, as we try to bring as much transparency as we can to light, we just rolled out a new COVID-19 CARES Act transparency website. So you can go and you can check it and you can see which counties are getting what dollars and what for what purposes. And again, I think it's important because you've all got constituents that want to know, some of which have moved on, some of which have been able to navigate COVID and have been able to get on with their lives. Some have had challenges. The state has pushed out over $16 billion with a B, billion dollars of unemployment benefits. We were the second highest applicant of PPP loans that have come into the state. So there's been billions of dollars that have flowed in the state through other ways of going straight to the households or straight to the businesses in order to sustain them. So, I mean, we're all in this together. There's a reason why they call it disaster. And you so, appropriately said that, we have been in a Category 5 hurricane for the last, 7 months.
Thank you. And along those lines, I know one of your initiatives is dealing with fraud and consumer protection. And with respect to insurance, and I know the Office of Insurance Regulation is administratively set under your office, but what type of insurance issues should communities be concerned about following Hurricane Sally or any other storm?
Sure. So one thing that we push out to people, we're not just limited to property casualty insurance claims. It could be automobile insurance, health insurance, life insurance, you name it. If you've got any questions or your constituents have any questions regarding insurance, we've got a consumer help hotline, 1-877-MY-FL-CFO. You can call that number, anything related. And what we told people after Hurricane Sally, we told them, prior to Hurricane Michael, never sign what's called an assignment of benefits. Never sign anything. And just to educate you, most of your members already know this, but an assignment of benefits is literally you're assigning your benefits to somebody else. You're assigning your rights. So when you go to an emergency room and you're filling out all the paperwork at the hospital, you sign an assignment of benefits because you're saying, hey, I'm sick. The hospital needs to get paid. Here, hospital, you have my proxy in order to petition the insurance company to get paid for my health services administered. Unfortunately, it has been exploited in a way that has taken advantage of the individuals and has dragged them into lawsuits when it comes to the AOB process, when it comes to construction or disaster claims, roof claims, windshield claims. All these ultimately drive up the cost of insurance and or make insurance less accessible in zip codes that become hotspots. When a community or a zip code becomes ripe with sue and settle and heavily involved in litigation, insurance companies will then determine, that this may be a zip code that's not really one I want to be writing in because there's definitely a propagation of bad actors that have gone in there influencing decisions that ultimately are legal by the letter of the law, but ultimately are dragging you into a lawsuit that you may not have known that you were going to be put in the middle of. So, the insurance fraud stuff is a big deal to us. And that was what was stressful as we were pushing that out in Pensacola and Santa Rosa counties, is making sure that, one, don't pay anybody cash for anything at your doorstep. If you're giving them cash, you might as well kiss it goodbye. There's no way to ensure that you will be reimbursed when you're writing somebody a cash payment. Checks are a safer way to go. Your insurance company is not going to pay you for trees down in your yard. Now, if you have a tree that, hits your house and creates devastation, take lots of photos. All those photos are critical, especially when it comes to the before and after. That video that you may have of your house, inside and out, wall coverings, floor coverings, televisions, and then you show your house in pristine condition, a storm hits, the adjuster is going to come out and they're going to do the same thing. They're going to try to reassemble what your house looked like before the storm. If you've got that video evidence, that photographic evidence, then you're creating a very black and white, comparison for them to take back in the claim settling process. So I think it's, again, we're in a virtual world nowadays. Everybody has become more dependent on their smartphones, and a little bit of video inside and outside of your house right now, especially before a storm has hit, would really be what's the difference in shaving off months, maybe even, extended period of time off your claim settling process.
No, that's good advice. I did that a couple of years ago when we were evacuating from the storm. I just took pictures of everything that I had in the house, and luckily we weren't impacted. But
Sure.
So I respect your time, but there is one question that came through, and
Sure.
I think the answer, you can't answer it, but maybe because you have the CARES Act transparency webpage up, you can provide some guidance on kind of how this can be pursued. And so the question is there any chance that counties can have the CARES Act money be appropriated on a non-reimbursable basis? Fiscally constrained counties typically don't have funds available to front, and we know this is, the governor's office.
Sure.
This is DEM managing the money. There was the 25% that was sent out by your office. There's another tranche that is supposed to be coming out. Any thoughts on that? I know it's really not your decision to make, but it's with respect to transparency, making sure that counties have the appropriate guardrails to spend the monies that they have to give the state the confidence that the money is going to be used appropriately.
So I've been pushing both Senator Scott and Senator Rubio in a delicate way, because I don't want to wear out my welcome, that we need some flexibility in the CARES Act dollars. The problem they roll into is, again, opening up that debate, that Pandora's box, because you've got New York, California, Illinois, New Jersey. You got so many states that are upside down financially in the retirement funds and their spending. In the state of New York alone, their annual budget is $150 billion. They have $150 billion worth of debt on the books. They have about 18 million people. So they're a train wreck financially. They can't cash flow. They're literally living from week to week. In the case of the state of Florida, we passed a $92 billion budget. Governor DeSantis vetoed $1 billion. We've got almost 20 million people, and we're carrying about $20 billion in debt. So I think part of it is you've got, members of Congress that, want flexibility of the CARES Act, would like to see some forgiveness as part of the solution, but they are also reluctant because there's so many states out there that did not make good decisions like we have in Florida. And the resentment is, why should we allow taxpayer dollars from Florida to bail out the bad decisions of a New York, a California, a New Jersey, a Connecticut, Illinois? So anyway, that is going to be part of the debate. You can, as I've just told you enough, you can probably see, because of how contentious this election has become, why there's probably not much of an appetite to even sit across from each other to try to iron out some type of compromise policy with the dollars that are already sitting in my checking account. Now, with the almost $6 billion we've got, we did what, I would do in my private business. We invested it. So, we have turned around $41 million worth of interest alone just on the CARES Act dollars we're sitting on that we hadn't even spent, hardly anything of. So we're going to try to make lemonade and lemon pie and you name it from the bowl of lemons that we got served because, like I said, the CARES Act dollars pretty restricted, but we're trying to find ways to cash flow this state. Thank goodness we're starting to see the economy come back, but cash flow the state until Congress, decides to be a little more cooperative with each other and work across party lines. Last thing I'll leave with you, and then I'm fine to answer any more questions you might have, but a number of your counties, your special districts, your municipalities that are housed underneath you, please go check out our unclaimed property website. I know it was probably about 2 years ago. I presented a check to Hillsborough County, I think for almost $200,000. And here's what will happen is, we have got dollars and some of your unclaimed property that you may have maybe 49 cents here, $1.90 here, $22 there. So they're a hodgepodge of instances. So, I'll get a spreadsheet, maybe 50 pages of spreadsheets of line items all under $1 a piece. It's not worth your time to try to recoup, less than $1. And it's difficult for the state to justify sending you a 55-cent stamp on top of a check that was for 49 cents. But what we can do is we can work with you and we can cull all those amounts, we can consolidate them and put them all together and get you one nice, neat, tidy check. So, your comptrollers and clerks are usually pretty good about reaching back out to us as we try to push that out. But I think it's a good reminder, as there's new electeds every year. Sometimes they need to revisit it, push them to reach out to our office. We will hold their hand. We will walk them through it. Anything that we can get back to them, large or small, we'll get it back to them. It's their money. We want to reunite that with them. And that's also, it's worthwhile to pass on to your employees and your local communities. There's nothing that would make me happier to send one of your county commissioners a check for, $50,000 that goes to a local employer in that community. And I'll let your county commissioner present the check. So don't think it's only, your government that could be a beneficiary of it, but your employers in your communities that could be beneficiaries. And you know what? I think everybody likes to have a little bit of good news from time to time. I have no problem, allowing y'all to make it rain with some positive news because, right now, I think everybody could use a little bit.
Yeah, I got $23 in JCPenney stock the other day. So
Nice.
Yeah, I think we don't have any other questions, but I did want to just kind of wrap up with a little humor. I don't do social media. I'm not on Facebook, but I do follow Twitter, mainly just for the news. But
Yeah.
kind of a theme I've seen out there from your tweets is probably number one, family, your two sons, FSU football, if I'm correct on that.
Yeah.
And then the third one is probably the busy bee.
So I can't, I'm so excited because if y'all haven't been to any of y'all that come up to Tallahassee, especially from South or Central Florida or even Northeast Florida, when you come across I-10 and exit 283, the busy bee, they're the Ware family, good people. They've got Ware Oil Company, the Johnson family, but it's a great gas station, family owned and operated Florida business, and they're starting to spread around, but it's got very, very clean bathrooms. So on long drives, because I know how hard it is for y'all to get from South Florida to Tallahassee, because the only way to get here is driving. It's worth a stop and supporting a good Florida-based business. But anyway, if nobody's told you this lately, thank you for your service, not only to your communities but the state of Florida. We wouldn't have as amazing of a state. We wouldn't have the businesses that relocate to the state. We don't have a safe state. We don't have a healthy state if it isn't for leadership, and especially the leadership that's closest to the people with our counties is key to all of that. Your county commissioners' phone calls, their phones ring a lot more than mine do, and I appreciate what they do to make this state as amazing as it is.
Well, we appreciate your partnership, your leadership, and thanks for your time today. I know you're busy as heck, and getting you on was going to be a challenge, but you made it, and we really want to thank you.
Thanks, Eric. I appreciate y'all. And anything I can do, I'm a phone call away.
Okay. Thank you.